Right now, the lives of around 40 to 50,000 American soldiers are hanging in uncertainty. What is unfolding has become deeply alarming. Across U.S. military bases throughout the Middle East, from Qatar to Saudi Arabia and beyond, American troops have begun sending their families back to the United States. Wives, children, and entire households have been evacuated in a rapid and urgent manner. The situation has reached a point where no one can confidently predict what will happen next. There is uncertainty about how severe the situation could become and who may ultimately survive if the conflict escalates. Many American soldiers had already sent their families away earlier, anticipating that tensions could grow. Now those still stationed in the region have begun saying what could be final goodbyes. They are embracing their children, meeting loved ones one last time, and writing letters intended for their families in case they never return. These are farewell messages meant to be delivered to their loved ones if they are caught in missile strikes or drone attacks. In such a scenario, those final letters and memories would be handed to their families afterward. At this moment, U.S. soldiers are facing immense emotional and psychological pressure. Those serving at military bases and aboard naval fleets are under intense mental strain. In many ways, this reaction is natural because they understand that they could be walking directly into a large-scale war. The contrast between the opposing sides is striking. Iranian forces often operate within an ideological framework where sacrifice is honored and dying for a cause is seen as a form of pride. American soldiers, however, do not share that same mindset. Many of them are deeply unsettled, recognizing that they may be entering a conflict whose outcome is uncertain and unpredictable. For years, their lives in the Middle East were relatively stable. Families lived together, children attended schools, and the possibility of major attacks felt distant, almost unimaginable. Now that sense of normality has disappeared. Neither American forces nor Iranian military units know where the first strike might originate. No one knows which missile could be launched first or when open war might officially begin. This uncertainty itself has become one of the most frightening aspects of the situation. Many U.S. soldiers have already written farewell messages to parents, relatives, and friends. Communication has also been restricted. Phone usage has reportedly been limited, officially due to cybersecurity risks and concerns about hacking or intercepted communications. At the same time, another development is drawing significant attention. Reports indicate that roughly 1,000 unmanned aerial systems have been distributed among Iranian military units, naval forces, and air defense networks. These systems are not symbolic or ceremonial tools. They are designed for coordinated military operations. This development means that tens of thousands of American troops stationed across the region could potentially fall within operational range. Just recently, Marco Rubio stated that nearly 400 U.S. military personnel are already positioned inside the operational reach of missiles and aerial systems. This suggests that such systems may be intended for the early stages of any potential engagement rather than later phases. Military strategy rarely relies on a single form of attack. Aerial systems would likely be combined with short-range projectiles, longer-range missile systems, and layered waves of strikes. In other words, it would not be a simple exchange of fire. It could become a coordinated and overwhelming campaign. Meanwhile, the global reaction is already visible. China has issued a strong warning, urging the United States not to push the region further toward confrontation, cautioning that doing so could ignite the entire Middle East. Economic signals are also reflecting the growing tension. Oil prices have begun to surge, while gold prices have climbed to historic levels, placing them beyond the reach of many ordinary investors. China itself has reportedly been purchasing gold in very large quantities. If the conflict were to escalate further, oil prices could rise dramatically. Gold could surge even higher. Silver would likely follow, and real estate markets in vulnerable regions could begin to weaken. Investors typically withdraw. During times of instability, tourism declines, flights are cancelled, and Gulf economies that depend heavily on international travel and tourism would face immediate economic pressure. This is how quickly economic stability can begin to unravel. At the same time, diplomatic backchannels remain active. Governments across the world are urging restraint because they recognize how catastrophic a wider conflict could become. Regional resistance groups have also issued warnings stating that a major strike could pull multiple powers into the confrontation and engulf the wider region. The central issue, however, is the scale of the military action being discussed. The plans under consideration are not minor or symbolic. Even Western media outlets are now discussing scenarios that once seemed unimaginable. Reports indicate that leadership targets are being openly debated. If actions of that magnitude were to occur, it is difficult to imagine the opposing side remaining silent. Retaliation would almost certainly follow. Iran has already begun strengthening underground shelters, emergency response systems, and protective infrastructure. Public guidance is being issued, and metro systems, as well as reinforced locations, are being prepared for emergency use. Government officials are reportedly being relocated to more secure facilities. At the same time, analysts note another important dynamic. Even though internal disagreements exist within the country, a foreign attack would likely cause the population to rally around the existing system, not necessarily out of full support for it, but because opposition to outside interference often becomes stronger during external conflicts. Intelligence assessments themselves acknowledge that there is no clearly accepted alternative leadership that the public would readily support. Even Western officials have admitted uncertainty about who would lead the country afterward, or whether a more hardline leadership could eventually emerge. That uncertainty has complicated strategic calculations. For American troops stationed in the region, one reality is becoming increasingly clear. They may be entering a conflict with no obvious exit strategy. Aircraft carriers regularly move around the world, whether in the South China Sea, the Caribbean, or the Indian Ocean, and these deployments are usually routine. But this time, many service members feel that the situation is different. Some crew members have reportedly been calling their families and telling them they are unsure about what tomorrow might bring. In military life, circumstances can change overnight. A soldier can lose a friend in a single moment, or their own life can be at risk without warning. That possibility weighs heavily on morale. What once felt like another routine deployment now carries the possibility of becoming a final mission. Discussions are even emerging about the possibility that military bases themselves could become direct targets, a development that would dramatically alter the entire situation. What happens next remains uncertain. Only time will reveal how events unfold. But one thing is already clear. The fear is real, the tension is real, and if this situation escalates further, the consequences could be devastating to everyone involved.